Lenovo fixed the Legion 7i's biggest problem in 2026. Well, technically Nvidia fixed it because Nvidia just launched a 12GB version of their RTX 5070 laptop GPU, which this year's 7i has inside. Last year, the 7i maxed out with just 8GB of VRAM, so stepping up to 12 just means this laptop will last longer when it comes to running the latest games. So let's get into it in this review. The 7i is available in Lenovo's Glacier White finish, so fingerprints don't show up, but over time it might start looking a bit dirty. Build quality feels fairly solid thanks to the all-metal anodized aluminum finish. There's not much flex when pushing down hard or wobble to the screen. But just like last year, the front edge can feel a little sharp if you brush your hands up against it. The front sticks out a little, making it super easy to open. The screen goes right back, and the hinges feel smooth and sturdy, whether I push them back too far or rip the lid open too fast. The Intel version of the Legion 7, so the 7i we're covering here, still uses last year's Gen 10 chassis, meaning it's still fairly thin and portable. In fact, it's one of the thinnest 16-inch gaming laptops we've tested. But Lenovo's Legion 7a, which uses the newer Gen 11 chassis, is slightly thinner, and is also now available with the same RTX 5070 12GB GPU too. The 7a is AMD based, while the 7i is Intel based, but the 7i has upgradable RAM, while that AMD 7a does not. And I don't know about you, but I would take a barely 6% increase to thickness for upgradable memory. The laptop by itself weighs in at 4.4 pounds or 2 kilos, increasing to 6 pounds or 2.7 kilos with the 245-watt charger included. It basically weighs the same as last year's version, and it's one of the lightest 16-inch gaming laptops available. Competitors like Asus's Zephyrus G16 or Razer's Blade 16 are generally more expensive. Along with the RTX 5070 laptop GPU's extra VRAM, my 7i has Intel's refreshed 290HX Plus processor, 32GB of RAM, and a 16-inch OLED screen. But you can customize the specs quite a bit with the link below. And if it has a good sale, we'll list it on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can save money. The keyboard has per key RGB backlighting, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. Holding the function key highlights the available shortcuts, and there are 3 levels of key brightness with the function and up and down arrow keys. The Legion Space software gives you more lighting customization, with 9 brightness levels and 13 different effects. You can drag the effects around here, and the function plus spacebar shortcut will cycle through the first 6. The keyboard feels great to type with. And I appreciate that we're not stuck with tiny arrow keys like other laptops. It's got a glass touchpad which feels great. It's nice and smooth with a satisfying click. Much nicer compared to the plastic touchpad found in their more powerful Pro 7i. Port selection isn't too bad. I like that we've got USB Type-A ports on both sides at the back, but given there aren't any air exhausts, it would have been nice to have the Type-C ports further back. And there's still no Thunderbolt 5, but at least we get HDMI and power running out the back and out of the way. The display outputs offer a good mix for connecting to discrete or integrated graphics. Connecting to the DGPU provides VR support and better FPS in games, but connecting to the iGPU for lighter tasks means quieter fans. Getting inside requires removing 8 Phillips head screws, all the same length. It was a little tricky to open, even with pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. Once inside, we've got the battery down the front, 2 RAM slots near the middle, the installed SSD on the right, a space for a second M.2 drive on the left, and the Wi-Fi card just above that. I rarely see laptops with an Intel CPU that didn't have Intel Wi-Fi inside. The RealTech chip just wasn't as good, but you should be able to upgrade it for like $20 if you wanted. The speeds from the installed 1TB PCIe Gen 4 SSD were great, and the SD card slot maxed out my V90 rated card. The card does not click in for security and sticks out a little, so you'll have to watch out not to bump it. Both M.2 slots fit drives with chips on both sides, but they both max out at PCIe Gen 4. The upgrade score is decent for a 16-inch gaming laptop, as we've got 2 swappable RAM slots, 2 M.2 storage slots with no size constraints, and upgradable Wi-Fi. But I took off half a point like last gen from ease of access, as it's just harder to open than most others. Granted, you'll probably only open it once or twice if you need to upgrade. The speakers are found underneath towards the front on the left and right sides. They sound alright, but nowhere near as good as ASUS's Zephyrus series, and less bass and a bit tittier compared to Lenovo's bigger Pro 7i. But they're clear enough with some bass, though there was some wrist-rest vibration. The Latencymon results weren't great in our 5-minute idle test. Not quite as good as last year's model. The Legion 7i is powered by an 84 watt-hour battery. The Legion Space software lets you enable adaptive refresh rate, allowing the screen's refresh rate to automatically drop to 60 Hz when you unplug the charger to save power, and it goes back up to 240 Hz when you plug back in. You can also use the Function plus R shortcut to swap between those refresh rates at any time. You can also limit the battery's maximum charge level to 80% in the Vantage software to help the battery last longer, as keeping it fully charged all the time can degrade it. But this can't be enabled at the same time as rapid charge, and you can also make the battery charge slower overnight. Battery life was decent as far as Intel HX gaming laptops go, but it only lasted 6% longer compared to last year's model. Not too unexpected, as the CPU and GPU are only slight refreshes, and at least it didn't get worse. It only lost 13% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours. But this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Well, it is a fair comparison with last year's model, as they both had 84 watt-hour batteries, though there wasn't much difference. Here's how much battery power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison, and it's a pretty good result compared to most other laptops tested. I'd say ASUS's Zephyrus G16 is a competitor to the Legion 7i, and that burned through more power while asleep. Maybe it was having a bad dream. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a standard cooler with a heat pipe shared between both. The two fans bring air in through these holes on the bottom panel, and air gets exhausted out of the back, so no hot air blowing on your mouse hands. The Legion Space software lets us swap between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balance, performance, and custom. Performance and custom modes automatically apply this overclock to the GPU to boost performance. You've got the option of using it in balance mode, but not quiet mode. In custom mode, you can either enable extreme mode or create your own profile to tweak power and temperature limits. We've tested custom in both the built-in extreme mode and with everything maxed out to see the differences. You can also go into the BIOS and enable CPU overclocking and optionally do some undervolting. And after enabling that, the CPU overclock option becomes available in the Legion Space software. But we haven't done any testing with that, as it's kinda pointless. Overclocking results depend on the silicon lottery, aka luck. The power button stays on one of these colors, so you can always know which performance mode you're in, and you can swap between them at any time with the Function plus Q shortcut. You can also adjust the brightness level of the power button through the BIOS. The internal temperatures are fine at idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario, but the temps generally run a few degrees cooler compared to last year's model. There's no real difference between performance mode or custom mode set to extreme, and sticking a stand underneath it didn't improve temps, but neither did closing the lid. So so no problem if you want to dock the laptop. The cooling pad I test with, linked below, only lowered temps slightly, and setting everything to max in custom mode was warmer. That's because it takes around 10 watts away from the GPU and gives the CPU 20. So in total, we're using about 10 more watts of total power. But otherwise, in custom mode set to extreme, the RTX 5070 laptop GPU maxes out near the 115 watt limit set by Nvidia, while the CPU runs at 55 watts, which is the same power limit as last year's model. And bam, here are some clock speeds from those same tests. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. The purple bars were tested with the screen's native resolution, while the red bars showed DLSS upscaling on balance to boost performance. There wasn't really a difference between custom mode set to extreme or maxing everything out, and performance mode was pretty similar too. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle. Again, the difference between custom mode set to extreme or maxed out was pretty much nothing. Despite having Intel's fastest laptop processor, at the end of the day, the refreshed 290HX Plus is a 275HX with a 100 MHz higher boost speed to the P and E cores, plus a few other things. Multi-core performance depends more on how much power you feed the processor, which is why it's basically the same as last year's model, though the single-core score has a slight boost, with 140 being the highest we've ever recorded, and we've only seen that from the 290HX Plus so far, but it's only a small lead over the 275HX laptops. Performance lowers if we unplug the charger and run on battery power, but it's still basically the same as last year's model. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range at idle, and the Legion's hotspot was only slightly above this and still felt cool. It gets warmer with the stress test running, but even the middle spot only felt a bit warm and not uncomfortable. It's pretty similar in the higher balance mode, as the fans spin faster to compensate for the extra power. Not much change in performance mode either. The wrist rest and WASD area still felt cool, which is ideal for those long gaming sessions. Custom mode isn't much different either, regardless of whether we're using the built-in extreme mode or manually maxing everything out. The hottest point is a couple of degrees cooler compared to last year's version, which isn't bad considering this year's version was slightly cooler on the inside too. But of course, that matters less if the fans make us deaf to achieve it, so let's listen to those next. There's not too much difference, but this year's Legion 7i was actually quieter compared to last year, and that combined with it being slightly cooler inside while feeling cooler to the touch is a nice little improvement. You can of course lower fan speed by adjusting it in custom mode, or just using one of the lower performance modes. Extreme mode is very close to maxed out, at least when under a heavy load. Performance mode doesn't look too much quieter, around 4 decibels less, but decibels work on a logarithmic scale. Extreme mode is actually closer to 30% louder than performance mode to our ears, and that's why I've got the Sones values, which better show perceived loudness difference. As we saw earlier, performance mode is very close to custom extreme in terms of temps, all while offering similar performance in gaming. Technically, performance mode maxed out at 90 watts on the GPU with the CPU loaded up at the same time, as per our stress test, so it'll depend on the game, but in Cyberpunk, performance mode still hit 100 watts on the GPU, as the CPU only used around 40 watts. In other words, performance Brightness mode offers a great mix of performance and thermals without being as loud. As for the screen, the Legion 7i is using the exact same OLED panel as last year, which means it looks great with vibrant colors, deep blacks, and above average brightness as far as OLED goes. We measured close to 500 nits at full brightness, and it can get very dim for using in the dark too. It's also using the same panel found in Lenovo's bigger Pro 5i and Pro 7i, so any minor difference we're seeing here is just panel-to-panel variance. But regardless, the screens these Legions are using are typically brighter than many other OLEDs tested. Running an OLED at higher brightness increases the concern for long-term burn-in, but the Legion Space and Vantage software do at least have some basic options to help mitigate that, though it would have been nicer if all options were in one spot. Other negatives of OLED panels include PWM flickering, which can give some people a headache after long use, and the glossy screen, which is more reflective and can be annoying if you're working in a bright environment. As usual, OLED means amazing screen response time, and content on the screen typically updates faster than half a millisecond. That's extremely fast, but also basically the same as all the other OLED panels we've tested. They're all super quick and great for fast-paced gaming. The refreshed Intel processor gave it an edge in the total system latency test, which is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on screen in Counter-Strike 2. At least I'm assuming it's the processor, given the only 290HX Plus machines we've tested so far are right up the top. That said, it's only like a millisecond faster than last year's model, which just isn't going to be a difference anyone actually notices. The Legion has advanced Optimus, allowing you to automatically get better FPS in games without a reboot. It's also got the classic muck switch, but that needs a reboot, and considering it doesn't change which GPU the ports connect to, there's no real point using it. G-Sync is available with Optimus off, and there's adaptive sync with Optimus on, so no screen tearing within this refresh range. There's a 1440p camera above the screen in the middle. It has AR for Windows Hello Face Unlock, unlike the bigger Legion Pro 7i, and here's how it sounds while typing on the keyboard. There's also a switch on the right to disconnect the camera. But how well does that updated 5070 with 12 gigs of VRAM perform in games? We've tested the 7i with these settings to find out. It's one of the better 5070 results in terms of average FPS in Cyberpunk at 1080p, though the 1% low was notably behind most of the others, which means there are more dips in performance. I'm not sure why, but that happened in this game with the other 290HX Plus laptop we tested too. It's only slightly faster compared to last year's model at 1440p, despite the 2026 model having extra VRAM. But we test this game with its built-in benchmark for consistency, and we have seen the game use well beyond 8 gigs of VRAM during normal gameplay, so this year's 12 gig model would have more of an edge there than what's shown here. The 7i is one of the best RTX 5070 results in Alan Wake 2 as well. On the one hand, it's got a higher 1% low and therefore is more stable compared to Lenovo's thicker Legion Pro 5i with 8GB 5070. But on the other hand, it's still basically the same compared to last year's 7i. But that changes at 1440p, where the 7i takes the lead over all other 5070 laptops we've tested, especially when it comes to the 1% lows, which are now even higher than some of the higher tier 5070 Ti laptops we've tested. Meanwhile, Black Myth Wukong was one of the lower results out of the full-powered RTX 5070 laptops we've tested, though we're only talking about a few FPS difference, which wouldn't be too noticeable. It's a similar story with ray tracing and DLSS upscaling enabled. The Legion 7i is performing quite well as far as a thinner 16-inch gaming laptop goes, and generally not too far behind thicker laptops that also run their 5070 at full power. Those three standard games we test with probably aren't the most VRAM demanding games, which is why I'll properly compare the 12GB 5070 against the 8GB version in 20 plus games in an upcoming video. Make sure you're subscribed for that. Here are the 3D Mark results.
content creator results were good for the most part. The extra VRAM and refreshed CPU tend to give it a slight edge over most other 5070s in DaVinci Resolve, but don't seem to matter too much in Adobe Photoshop. There's a lot more customization available through the BIOS compared to most other laptop brands, except for perhaps MSI, who just have an insane amount of options. We've got options for CPU overclocking, undervolting, and more. Linux support was great. The only thing that didn't work was the shortcut for changing the refresh rate, but given most laptops don't even have that, I can let it slide.
Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the link below for updates. And if the Legion 7 has a good sale, you'll find it on our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that daily to include the best deals, so check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop. At the time of recording in early June, I can't actually find this configuration with the new processor available in the US yet, but it varies by region. Honestly, for the extra longevity the 12 gigs of VRAM gets you, I think I'd be willing to spend $50 to $100 more than last year's model, because it just ensures the laptop will last longer. So then, is Lenovo's Legion 7i worth considering? Let's quickly summarize the good and the bad to find out. Starting with the good, the biggest issue I had last year has been fixed, and that's that the 5070 GPU is now available with more VRAM. Otherwise, the 7i still offers a premium feeling metal design while being on the thinner, lighter, more portable side. The OLED screen still looks great and is brighter than most others. The keyboard feels nice to type on, and the glass touchpad feels nice too. As for the bad, the front edge can still feel a little sharp depending on the angle of your hands, but most of the time it's fine during normal use. There's still no Thunderbolt 5, Wi-Fi speed was a bit meh, but that could be upgraded, though it was a little harder to open up compared to most other laptops. Bottom line, there's nothing really too different about this year's Legion 7i, but the CPU refresh and extra GPU VRAM are definitely welcome improvements to one of my favorite gaming laptops, making it much easier to recommend if you are after a thinner, portable gaming laptop. The AMD-based Legion 7A, on the other hand, does have more changes compared to the 7i, including a new smaller 15-inch Strix Halo version, which we should be getting soon, so get subscribed for that. Alternatively, if you'd prefer more performance, check out Lenovo's bigger but more powerful Legion Pro 7i here. It's broken a bunch of our performance records, so I'll see you in that one next.